All right, this training is going to be on understanding student conduct. Let's start by going over the basics. What is special needs transportation? So basically, the government ensures all students get a fair education. And for some students, meeting this commitment requires special transportation. And that's where we come in and provide transportation for a diverse group of students. So special transportation is for students in special programs or schools. Some special needs students ride regular buses and should be treated like everyone else. So who's on the bus? It's the drivers and the aides. Obviously, the drivers are the people who drive the special needs buses, and the aides are the adults who help the students on the bus, also called bus assistants, chaperones, monitors, and paraprofessionals. All right, so let's start by going over the basics for special needs transportation. Know your route. Excuse me. Is it a special education route? Be prepared for unique needs. So that's why it's very important to know your specific student, because different students have different needs. Number two, understand students' disability. Know the challenges the students may face to help them better. So always read your route copy and know the specific disability your student has, and always be curious so that you're more prepared to help them better. Number three, use equipment correctly. Learn how to secure wheelchairs in a wheelchair accessible van. Some students come in with a safety vest, so you'll be required to know how to harness the safety vest correctly on the chair, and any other special equipments. Number four, be ready for emergencies. Know what to do in case of a medical or behavioral emergency. Number five, have a contact person. If you have any concerns, reach out to your company, and if needed, we will reach out to the school district representatives. So communication is very, very important. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to call. Number six, show sensitivity and respect. Always focus on the students first. For example, say a student who uses a wheelchair instead of saying a wheelchair student. It is more respectful. All right, IEP and least restrictive environment, LRE. When you hear this, it might seem kind of confusing, but let's kind of break it down. What is IEP? It's a written plan that outlines the services of a student's needs, including transportation. So what is LRE? Well, LRE outlines students with disabilities should learn alongside non-disabled peers whenever possible. So what does this have anything to do with transportation? Well, the default is that students ride regular buses unless they need any kind of special arrangements. For example, their school that they're going to is going to be too far for where there's no bus provider that's going to take them there. So in these kind of situations, the IEP team, excuse me, comes in and includes transportation reps to decide the best service for each student. And that's also where we come in and fill that need for different diverse group of students and provide them with the transportation that they need. What are the common disabilities? So we have autism, blind or visually impaired, deaf-blind, emotional or behavior disorders, physical and cognitive disabilities, speech or language impairments, and traumatic brain injuries. Now, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act protects students with disabilities from discrimination in federally funded programs. It covers conditions like asthma, diabetes, temporary impairments, ADD, ADHD, and drug and alcohol addiction. This is all to provide a fair and accessible education for every student. So, all right, now we're focusing on you as the driver. What are your responsibilities as a driver? Well, your number one job is safety first. Make sure the bus runs properly and safely. That's where the pre-trip inspection comes in, that you fill out every morning, is to check and make sure your vehicle is safe to drive. Encourage good behavior to keep the ride smooth. So always make sure you're in communication with the students. Always you're paying attention to them and giving that extra care they need by ensuring that everyone is safe. Your key duties are to know your students. So learn their names and learn their disabilities, right? You get the route copy, you're going to get the student's name, you're going to get the student's grade, anything you need to know about their disability or their medical data. So make sure you, as the driver, familiarize yourself with that information. Be prepared before departure. Be ready for each trip. Treat this as the most important trip of your life, right? Before you head out, make sure you're looking at the map, the GPS, so that you can plan ahead and you can arrive on time or a little early instead of running into so many different things that may be unknown. And that's also going to give you the space to be able to drive safely. Stay on schedule. So keep up with the pickup and drop off times. So really familiarize yourself with the pickup and drop off time and stay on top of it the best you can. Load and unload safely. So help students get on and off properly. So don't always expect the staff or the parent to do this for you. It is your responsibility as the driver. If students need assistance, that you help them do that. That could mean opening doors, and in some cases that could even mean buckling them up. So you assist them in whatever the students need. And if you have an aide, work with your aide, communicate and cooperate. So if you have an aide, the aide is probably going to be helping you with opening the door, buckling students in, loading and unloading students safely. So always communicate that and work as a team. Use safety equipment. So if you're in a wheelchair accessible van, secure wheelchairs. If you have a student with a safety vest, make sure that the harness is secured properly so that the student has a safe ride, and other gear correctly. So stay connected, communicate with the school, parents, and dispatch. Again, if you have any kind of questions about the student's disability or any behavioral questions, always reach out and don't hesitate. And also, you can have these kind of conversations with the staff. If you're ever curious about anything, you can have a conversation with the staff to know more and stay updated that way. But keep information private. So, for example, if you're picking up a student and a neighbor passes by and asks you about the student's disability, do not disclose this for any reason. Plan for emergencies. So have an evacuation plan and be ready to act. So before an emergency even happens, make sure you have some sort of plan and know how you're going to handle that kind of situation. So as the bus aide, what is your responsibility? Well, your role is support and safety. So to help the driver make sure every student has a safe ride. You do that by these following key duties. You assist with loading and unloading. You help the students get on and off the bus properly and assist them with anything else they may need, including seatbelts, opening doors, and all those kind of things. You secure students properly. So if you are in a wheelchair accessible van, you help with making sure that the wheelchairs are secure, making sure that the students are seated in the appropriate car seats or booster seats for their size, and making sure that if the student has a safety vest, it is your responsibility to make sure that the harnesses are secured and fastened correctly. Now, you also supervise the students. So you keep an eye on them during the ride so that the driver can focus on driving. You also maintain discipline and confidentiality. So you encourage good behavior and protect the student's privacy. So you ensure that their seatbelts are on the whole ride, that if you have multiple students in the vehicle, that they're keeping their hands to themselves, and that everyone is respectful to each other. And in case of any kind of emergency, it's also your responsibility as the aide to know and follow evacuation procedures. You are also expected to communicate with others. You stay in touch with the school, parents, and dispatchers, and follow district policies. Stick to the rules and guidelines for transportation. Teamwork makes every ride safe and smooth. All right, special transportation equipment use and management. Let's talk about wheelchair securement really quick, and this is going to be for wheelchair accessible vans. So before loading up, you always have to set the wheelchair brakes before securing. So the wheelchair should not be rocking back and forth. And then you attach the tie downs, which are basically tied down to the floor of the vehicle, to the wheelchair frame. The wheelchair frame should have a specific hook where you can attach the tie downs. Now, sometimes it might not have the hook, but you can always attach it to the frame, but never on the wheel. It should be 2 in front and then 2 in the back. And then you just tighten all the straps on all 4 sides to secure it properly. And then, of course, you secure the lap belt, the seat belt on the student, and the upper torso restraint properly. So passenger safety devices like seat belts, car seats, safety vests, and other devices must be used correctly following manufacturer's instruction. And if you ever need more training on some of these things like safety vests, always reach out. If you're ever unsure, always reach out so that you can get extra support and extra training on that. Seating arrangements. So arrange seats based on behavior, equipment needs, and safety. So as the driver, you have the ability to be able to arrange the seats in the way you think is appropriate. So for example, if 2 students are in close proximity and they are, fighting or having trouble keeping their hands to themselves, you can, as the driver, assign them seats so that they are in further proximity and that the behavior issue is resolved. So sometimes keeping a seating chart for consistency might be helpful. So just being able to know that, okay, this student is going to sit on the middle row on the left side, and my second tier student is going to sit on the back side on the right. And so if you have an aide, it's you guys' responsibility to keep that arrangement and help the students get to school safely. All right, service animals. Only trained service animals are allowed on the bus. And medical equipment, this is going to be rare, but in the rare occasion that the students do have medical equipment, you are required to secure oxygen tanks, ventilators, and other medical devices to prevent movement during transport. This is so that things are just not flying around when you are driving. So behavior modifications for special needs students. The bus rules are always safety and respect. Only acceptable behavior is allowed on the bus. So behavior management should be coordinated, including inputs from school programs, district policies, and consider students' disability. So keep rules clear, fair, and consistent for all students. Seatbelt is a requirement for everybody. Keeping your hands to yourself is a requirement for every student. And also profanity is something that is not allowed or prohibited on the bus. So keeping these rules consistent when it comes to other behavioral problems, as the driver, you approach it with extra care and patience, since there's a diverse group of students with disabilities, and in some cases, some students may have limited understanding. So always keep that in mind. But there is zero tolerance for sexual harassment. Any inappropriate behavior must be reported and addressed immediately. So discipline and conduct reports. This shall be completed to ensure to handle behavior consistently throughout the entire educational system. So if you are noticing consistent behavioral issues as the driver, you are required to report that and fill out the student conduct report. So let's talk about, in case of emergency, evacuation procedures. Be prepared before an emergency. That's why we are talking about it. So that, we always think it's never going to happen to us until it happens, right? So plan evacuation routes in advance. So know students' abilities and what equipment that they need. So be ready for different emergencies like fire, crashes, etc. You never know what could happen. So the driver and aide must have a written evacuation plan and keep it updated. So steps to take in an emergency. Determine evacuation order. Decide who exits first, who exits second, etc. And assist students with limited mobility and help those who need extra support. Use proper lifting and dragging techniques to move students safely. And utilize bystanders when necessary. If you ever find yourself in an accident like that, always make sure you utilize the help around you. If there's people around, people passing by, get help if needed. Emergency card and confidential information. So drivers and aides must have access to the emergency health information at all times. This is going to be on your route copy, tells you the student's disability, student's medical data, and this information is private and should never be shared with anyone outside of the parent or guardian. And the only exception would be in an emergency situation when the information is given in a need-to-know situation. So if a student has a disability that doesn't affect the transportation, you as the driver will not receive that information. It will not be on the route copy. How can this information be stored? Well, like we talked about, it could be on the route copy that's printed out, a physical emergency card kept in the vehicle, or a two-way radio or dispatch, so access through communication system when needed. So if you ever need that information, you could also access it through reaching out to dispatch. So let's take this as an example. Severe bee sting allergy. If a student is severely allergic to a bee sting, the driver needs to know the student's allergy and what to do if they got stung. Special needs transportation, additional issues to know. So be prepared for these situations. Your transportation office should have clear procedures for handling the following scenarios. Let's start with the first scenario. Parent or caregiver not home when eye-to-eye or hand-to-hand drop-off is required, but no one is there. What do you do in that situation? In that kind of situation, it's important to not let the student out of the vehicle. You report this immediately and notify dispatch so that we can get a hold of the parent or guardian. And until we're able to do that, it's important to keep the student in the vehicle and also communicate to them to stay calm and stay in the vehicle. Number 2, student is not ready at pickup. What do you do if a student isn't at home or at school on time? Well, we always say for this kind of situation, if it's your first time picking up, you always call dispatch. You never know if there's special arrangements, if there's longer waiting times than normal, or if you are at the right door of the building, maybe they get out through the back. So in order to verify those information, you have to be able to contact dispatch before leaving. And once dispatch instructs you on what to do, then you can move on to the next step. But in the morning, if it's not your first time picking up that student, you wait 3 minutes and you depart. In the afternoon, typically it's going to be 10 minutes and before you depart and put no show. But again, this is for a student you've already been picking up. A third scenario, what if a student is unable to ride due to illness, behavior, or unsafe circumstances? So if it is due to illness and you are required to, it's an emergency, you're required to call 911. If it's any kind of behavioral issue, you are expected to park on the side of the road, contact dispatch if you need extra assistance before moving on. But mainly, park at a safe location, communicate your expectations until the behavioral issue is resolved. If not, contact dispatch and wait for more assistance before moving on. Or if you're in any unsafe circumstances, again, make sure you are parked in a safe location so that you don't have any risks for accident, and call out for help. Number 4, bodily fluid and bloodborne pathogens. How to handle accidents and biohazards safely. So let's say a student bleeds or has an accident. As you know, you have an emergency equipment in the back of the vehicle. So as the driver, you're required to know how to use the bodily fluid cleanup and first aid kit. And so if you do end up using those for the student, make sure that after you drop off the student, you come back to the office or to base and get a replacement for that emergency equipment. So another scenario is a weather emergency. What do you do in severe weather conditions? Well, one is make sure you have your communication device, your cell phone, for real-time updates. The routes might get canceled or the routes might get delayed. So it is your responsibility as the driver to be ready to receive real-time information, even if it might not be, it might not be immediate. But in any other case, it is always advised to leave early before, way earlier than you would otherwise. And if needed, turn on your hazard lights and drive slow. It's better to be safe than sorry, right? And 6, changing road conditions. How do you adapt to stay safe on the road? One way to adapt and stay safe on the road is to always check your GPS and maps before leaving, giving yourself enough time to identify any kind of road changes, right? Traffic, construction, and all those kind of things. And number 7, medical emergencies. Know your district's policies and procedures for handling health-related crisis. So the driver's responsibility is to know and understand the policies of your district or contractors for handling these situations. Prepared drivers keep students safe. Thank you.